to this conversation about millennial buyers and sort of the near future of our industry and the promotional products industry as a whole. And I'm really glad that SAGNY wanted to do this, District 1 wanted to do this, because this is a conversation that is starting to become amplified, particularly surrounding millennial buyers and how that group of consumers is going to market, how they're purchasing, but more specifically, how they're coming into our market. And if you've heard my other presentations, either in person or you've heard webinars or you've had conversations with me, you know that my entire world surrounds this idea of the generational divide that's in place right now. And there's a massive gap between the baby boomer generation that is exiting the workforce and thus exiting the marketplace and the millennials who are now coming in. Gen X is in the middle, but they are such a small group that as far as we're concerned, there leaves this sort of gap. And there's confusion over the millennial group, especially whenever it comes to things that we're going to talk about today, like consumerism. There's confusion over how that group is going to purchase. It's easy to be able to put them in a corner and say, oh, they're strictly online, or they're strictly an Amazon-based generation. And I think what you're going to find today is that may be the case in many different industries. But the good thing is we are in an industry that is poised perfectly to do business with this generation and to be effective in doing business with this generation. And so it really excites me to be able to see this information come out, to see the research come out on our end, and to be able to deliver that and share it with you. Now, I will say, if you haven't seen our generational demographic-based industry study that came out earlier this year, it's on our website. We published it in PPB magazine, and it's got a lot of good information that's much more extensive than what I'm going to go into here to talk about what individual products sell depending on age, specific categories, and things like that. But the biggest message to take away from that is that this industry is the perfect, most ideal industry for the younger generation, for the future buying group, for this millennial generation. And it, like I say, it excites me to see that, because I see that we are able to produce something that is effective for this generation. And we've aligned ourselves well based on the first technology boom that happened, and everybody got online, and now everybody's well suited to be out into the marketplace that's effective for the millennial generation. So I'm excited to share this with you. So real quick, let's touch on it. Like I say, if you've heard me before, you know how I identify millennials. You could ask 5 people today. They're going to give you 5 different answers. But in everything that we're talking about today, let's assume that millennials are born between roughly 1981 and 2000. So that's a little bit bigger of a gap than you'll typically see, or bigger of a group than you'll typically see out there. But I did that for a reason. A couple of years ago, whenever I started this research to talk about generations, I really needed to start to identify what generations were pertaining to our research. And that it varies depending on each generation. There's no exact time frame, but let's just assume that 1981 to 2000 is who we're talking about today with this consumer group. So like I said, this is inevitably going to be a very significant group in our marketplace. It's actually, within the next decade, is going to be the largest group, largest single generational group within the market that we have ever seen, that the world has ever seen. So the baby boomer generation has held a significant place, a majority spot within the market for the last 3 decades. That is starting to dwindle away as baby boomers near retirement. And the millennial group is the next largest generation, and then they are the biggest generation we've ever seen. So a lot of this, it's impacting us now. It's impacting the way that we're doing business and how millennials are purchasing, and that will continue to be so as they move into roles where they are doing business with you, where they are becoming purchasers, where they're becoming end users. And millennials are, as you'll see throughout this presentation, they're very familiar with the idea of promotional products, but a lot of them haven't been educated in such ways as far as they understand the buying and the consumerism of it. So that's where I leave things. The keys are in all of your hands to be able to go out to the market and effectively market yourselves and market our industry. But what I'm going to do today is just give you some tools, some background to say, here's where we've come from, here's where we're going, and here's why we are so well aligned for the next generation. So let's start out by looking at the two significant categories of consumers that are in the marketplace. So yes, baby boomers and Gen Xers are very different. They're categorized very differently. The way that they consume is very different, but it's not as different in contrast as it is to the millennial generation. So I put the group of boomers and Gen Xers in one category here. So that group makes up roughly 2/3 of the buying market presently. Like I say, that number is changing drastically by the day, but as we speak today, that's what we're looking at. So boomers and Gen Xers, primarily as consumers, they are the lowest price seekers. You know, it depends on the product. Obviously, some are able to spend a little bit more on a certain product than others. Some are more willing to spend a specific amount of money depending on what the product that they're getting. However, as a whole, as consumers, it really was about, or is about, the lowest price. What is the most effective bang for my buck? They're also consumers of what's in it for me. So it's what are they able to take away from whatever they're consuming? What, in addition to, if they're willing to, though they're going after the lowest price, if they're willing to invest their money, their resources into something, what is the immediate return to them? And that's them personally. It could be that they're purchasing something for their organization, but there needs to be some sort of an impact to them personally. These groups are also the ones that are seeking more for less. Again, like I said, it's that biggest bang for their buck. This group trusts marketing messages. They by nature trust marketing messages because, especially when we're looking at the baby boomers, they haven't known to not trust marketing messages. Marketing has taken a huge increase since baby boomers were entering the market many years back, and it has just continued to inundate our marketplace. However, the trust that comes along with those marketing messages is heightened within that. As the generations go older, the actual trust within the marketing message is increased. These groups are also passive recipients of brand communication. So they are not as active in the immediate turnover to what they're trying to get out of a brand or what the brand is trying to instill to them. They see things very passively. It goes back into that very organic psychology of marketing, that people see a message, they become inundated with a message, and then sort of in a passive way, they take action. And as we're going to see, millennials are kind of the opposite of that. But this is speaking of those boomers and Gen Xers, they're passive recipients of brand communication, of marketing. So now let's move over and look at the millennials. So roughly 1/3 of the consumer market right now is millennial, and that's increasing, and to a point where in the coming decade, they're going to make up the vast majority, 2/3, if not just a little bit more, of the marketplace as far as consumers. So instead of lowest price, this is a group that consistently shows that they seek total value. Cost is absolutely a consideration, but in the research that I've seen, the studies that we've done, cost always falls second to value, second or even third. But value comes first. It's what do they value within that product, within that commodity that they are consuming. The idea is different from the what's in it for me. It's what's in it for we, what's in it for the entire generation, what's in it for that workforce, what's in it for that person's marketplace, their individual business. If you've heard me talk about how we are changing the way that we're selling to millennials, it's removing the I and replacing we. So as there at once, sales are very much about the I statements. Here's what I can do for you. Now it's here's what we can do together. It's a relationship. It's a bond. This is that same sort of idea. It's what is in this for all of us. What are you as the salesperson getting out of this selling to me? What sort of relationship are we able to determine with each other? What's in it for us? What's in it for we? This is a group that seeks meaningful consumption. And that goes back to just the way that they live their lives. They are seeking things out that are meaningful. They're more, as you'll see down the road here, there is more opportunity to market to them if you're able to market things that are ideal as far as their idea of meaningful consumption is concerned. And we'll look a little bit more at that. They look beyond the marketing message. It's not just about the marketing message anymore. It's about everything that's attached to that marketing message, which is awesome for this industry because we are the group that's trying to figure out how to make the most minimal marketing messages drive the most effective response. And the cool thing is this group is perfect for that because they question, because they seek, because they are the ones that it's instilled in them to ask why, to ask questions about anything that they're doing, about anything that they're consuming. So they are looking beyond that, just the ordinary marketing message. So it's not just about, I've got to cram all this information into this small area on this product because I need to 100% deliver this message. I'll give them a little bit of a teaser, knowing that they will seek out more information based on that message just out of pure curiosity. And finally, they are active recipients. They are the ones that take action. They are an immediate turnover of action. So I'll give you an example. You think about it this way, because I've found myself in this position. I found myself being a very active recipient as a millennial. So if you go to a sporting event, let's say you're going to a college football game, and out front of the football game, there's a tent set up and people are giving out promotional products. Maybe it's a styrofoam football that has some sort of a message about a charity or a fundraiser or something that's going on. So the boomers and Gen Xers as passive recipients would take that and think, oh, that's great. I'll have to check that out later, whatever it is. Here's the prompt to action. Go to the website, look on social media, whatever it may be, whatever that group is trying to instill in people through their marketing message. The passive recipient says, oh, that's great. I'm going to have to take a look at that. And then they kind of put the product away and they're not thinking about it. Millennials, being the active recipients of that message, are taking that and thinking, oh, I can't wait to look and see what that is. Even if they know it doesn't pertain to them at all, it's that curiosity thing. And because millennials are so well plugged into the world around them constantly through things like technology and social media, they're able to seek those things out quicker. They want to seek those things out quicker. So in my situation, I got a product, walked into the game before the game started. There's not much going on right then. I've got a couple of minutes. I'll get online. I'll get on Facebook and look up this company or look up this cause to see what's going on, just to see if I may be interested in it. That's that very active approach to the content. So I touched on this just a second ago, but millennials are more willing to purchase a product. This is any product, but it definitely ties back into what we're trying to do if the product or the company supports a cause. So this is really cool because so many of you have stories of how promotional products have helped to change the landscape of the clients that you're working with, whether they may be a not-for-profit, they may be a small business that's trying to start out, and so they're trying to be cost-effective, whatever it may be. The millennials, as purchasers, and also as consumers, they're more willing to purchase a product if they're cause-driven, if the company supports a specific cause, and B, if the product supports a specific cause. This ties in so much, and we'll look at a couple of brand examples down the road here, but this ties in so much, excuse me, to how this group goes to market in general. They're also more willing to work for an organization if the organization demonstrates that they have value that's attached to cause-specific routines. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean, especially whenever it comes to companies supporting a cause, all of you that are listening, your company or you individually support a cause. I know you do. It's the human nature of us today. Be able to demonstrate that. Be able to talk about how you are supporting causes. Even if the cause doesn't relate to anything that I'm involved in, the fact that you do it, the fact that you support a cause, or the fact that you support products that support a cause, or you did business with somebody, gave them, provided products to them, sold products to some organization that delivered some type of a cause, that's great. That speaks volumes to me, because me as that consumer that's looking for cause driven, that's what I'm trying to identify with. Now, how's the best way to identify with that? The most effective way for this group, and I'll say it again here in a minute, is that idea of do business where they do business. They being this purchasing group, this consumer group. They do business. I do business in a very digital world. I'm inundated by things through social media, through online messaging, because that's just the world that I happen to live in. The cool thing is that's where you need to be publishing those cause-driven things. I love whenever I see companies in our industry, suppliers or distributors, that post something about, it may be that their staff was out involved in community service, or it may be that they did some type of really cool product for a local charity who was using it to advocate for some type of event or some type of cause. And they publish those things on there. Just, a picture and a quick caption of here's what's going on. I love to see that, because yes, it's still about the product. Yes, it's still about the relationship, the customer support, all of those things, but it's also about the cause. You can drive me into your organization with that sort of golden carrot out there to say, here's the cause. Now see what else is going on. And now I want to be more involved with following your company, more involved in doing business with your company, because I know that you're cause driven and that you are out there showing that you're cause driven. It's a difficult thing for people, because they often think, oh, I need to not really be bragging about myself and be bragging about the things that I'm doing, or they see things as sort of insignificant. The little things like your staff getting outside your office building to plant a tree or do something because it's Earth Day or whatever it may be. That may seem very small and insignificant, but let me tell you, whenever it comes to this group, to my group as consumers, it's huge. That's the things that we want to see. It's very easy for us to see the companies that are not doing those things. I kind of looked through yesterday. I was looking through my social media, Facebook specifically, and looking at all the different organizations that I follow, whether they be in our industry or not, and kind of clicking through and seeing, are these people, one, are they delivering the mission and vision that they've demonstrated? Are they actually living that out? Are they using social media to deliver that message? But then are they plugging their products in, or their people into cause-driven activities? And it's amazing how many that I found that truly were. And I think a lot of them didn't think that that's what they were demonstrating, but it speaks volumes to me about if they're actually able to be out there driving back to a cause, giving value back to their employees or their community. And then it makes me want to find out more about them. Like, okay, this company's obviously got it. They've captured my attention. Now what else is there? That's whenever the consumer side of me opens up to the possibilities of consumption. So I said it a second ago, do business where they do business. That's that old sales adage. That was a very physical thing at one time, they being whoever the customer is that you're doing business with. And like we just talked about, they being my group, the Millennial group, does business in a very digital world. They connect and communicate, they research, everything is in a very digital world. Now, it's not exclusively digital, like we'll see here in a minute. It's not that they're looking to social media to research you, to do business, to buy the product and everything. There's still a necessity for a relationship at some point within there. However, they're going to start that relationship through those channels that are very familiar. We all do that. We all consume in ways that are very familiar to us. It's the reason why if you go to the grocery store once a week, you're probably going back to the same grocery store every single week, because there's a familiarity there. No different with this group. The familiarity comes from the digital world. It comes from a different landscape than the rest of us may be familiar with. But the cool thing about it is if you're doing business where they do business, it's about promoting yourself, marketing yourself in the eyes of those people that are present or potential consumers. And the greatest way to do that is through social media, which we're going to talk about now. So 90% of millennials in that buying to buying, business or selling capacity still rely on Facebook for research, though Facebook's numbers are dwindling. There was even a report on the national news this morning that talked about Facebook is sort of having to give itself a facelift because they're running out of ideas to create or generate new content to reach consumers in an effective way so that they can still be a very social media while still being friendly to businesses and to people that are like us that are doing business on there. However, even with that said, 90% of those millennials that are in that business-to-business buying or selling capacity rely on that for research. I'm certainly one of those people. If I meet someone, whether it's in our industry or not, and I take a business card from them, the very, very first place that I look for information is on Facebook. For one, Facebook, social media, that's my business card holder. That's the place where I put that information. That's where I connect with people, because that's my community. It's my access point. So that's the very first place I'm going to go. I'll look for the person individually. If there's nothing if I can't connect with them on there, then I'll connect with their company. But that's the very first place I turn to. And I found myself doing this even before this research came out, that really that's where I went to, because it's the place where I'm most comfortable, where I'm most familiar. And if I'm plugged into somebody, if I'm doing business with them, that's where I am actually physically doing business, where I am connecting and communicating throughout a time, great time lengths, because I may not, I know many, many people in this industry, but I may not have the opportunity to pick up a phone every week and call 15 of them just to check in. But with social media, especially with Facebook, I can do that all the time. I can do those sort of check-ins. We can have that continued relationship even without that interpersonal connectivity. Though I will say the interpersonal connectivity is still important. And like I said, as you get to that more relationship-driven piece, it needs to be there. But Facebook, social media is that good leverage point in between those things. So again, that group and that business-to-business buying or selling capacity is relying on Facebook for research. You also think about it this way. There could be, especially now that there are so many millennials that have gotten into a career that are in those very early stages of maybe junior management or mid-level management. These are the people that you're going to inevitably, if you haven't already, start to do business with. And the thing is if their boss comes to them and said, hey, we've got an advertising budget, it's this amount of dollars, how can we most effectively spend this? Where they're going to go is to those channels that are most familiar to them, whether they go on to social media and they're asking for references or referrals. I actually answered a referral from somebody the other day that posted on LinkedIn that was connected to an accounting firm that I know, saying, hey, I need to buy some of these. I see these products everywhere. I need to buy some of these products, and just totally uneducated about who the industry was, what it was. So I plugged her into the Promotional Products Work website, where she can find information about, here's why this is a cost-effective advertising media. Here's where you can go to find more information, and then that's where she can plug in her zip code and find a list of preferred distributors, things like that. So that was just one of those examples of that's going on so much. Those people are out there and they're in that capacity, but they're in a special place because they have grown up. As they've grown into business, they've grown into business with that safety net of social media. So that's where they're going. So 53% of that group relies on Twitter for customer interaction. Now that number is kind of going away. It's not necessarily Twitter is definitely not the number one place, especially as we're talking about trying to instill education to consumers. It's not the most ideal place to do it. Obviously, it's still important. I always tell people, because of the customer interaction piece, it's an important place to monitor. It's not necessarily about, people are not going to go to your Twitter page and say, oh, this person hasn't posted anything in 3 months, whereas they may on Facebook or someplace else. They may say, oh, well, they're just not active on social media at all. Twitter is not the place for that. They will go to Twitter because they want to connect with you or contact you about something. So it's a very important thing to monitor, not as much of an important thing to generate organic content. So 47% of millennial marketers connect with clients and customers on LinkedIn. That number is increasing by the day. And it's because LinkedIn is the very coat and tie of the social media world. And you think about, as millennials have progressed, they're now at that junior management, mid-management sort of area, the vast majority of them. And so they're utilizing LinkedIn because it is much more of a professional resource. Again, it's not as valuable to generate organic content on a continuous basis, but just having a general presence on there, I cannot say how valuable that is. The good thing about whenever we're talking about consumerism, about this group of consumers, and you being on LinkedIn, you can really get your stuff set up on there and sort of walk away from it, which is a really cool thing. And finally, 61% of U.S. marketers use social media for lead generation. That's because social media is honest. Marketers could go to your website. They could go to your competitor's website. They can see the very glamorous look of here's, their vision and their mission. Here's some of the big clients that they've had. And it's easy for people to be very vague through a website. Social media is honest. That's why marketers are going there. That's why millennials use social media for research over websites, because it's very honest, it's very real. I'm able to see if you have a certain vision and mission, if you're actually delivering that vision and mission out in your community, with your clients and customers, with your employees. So that's why that group of marketers, of millennial marketers, are utilizing social media for lead generation. And that will continue to increase as more and more people become active on social media, especially as more and more businesses become active. So let's look at promotional products in general. Promotional products are the #1 most effective advertising channel among the advertising channels to prompt action among the millennial group. And that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to plug people into products that prompt action. It's not just about a brand for the sake of a brand or a message for the sake of a message. It's trying to get people to prompt action. And like the example that I gave you earlier, not only is this group finding that, or not only are we finding that this group is the most effective at taking action on a prompt, that they're doing so in a very, very timely manner. Now, here's why. It's because promotional products are received in a very one-time, unique environment. So most people, most end users are not getting multiple promotional products at one time. If I'm walking into the football game and there's a tent set up out there and somebody runs and grabs me and says, hey, here's, take this cool foam football. I go, okay, that's great. Thanks for that. It's that one time. It's not that I'm inundated by all these people, all these hundreds of people coming up and trying to hand me all these different promotional products and I've got my arms full of them. That's what other advertising is. It's an inundation that that people have to be selective with. Millennials, but all of us really, don't have to be selective with promotional products because we are able to take action on that prompt at that one-off opportunity because we got that one football or that one cup or that one pen or that one whatever at that one specific point. Instead of, you think about broadcast media. If people are wanting me to take action on a prompt that comes up through broadcast media and I see 5 commercials in a row, I'm having to be selective. Either I'm going to take action on all of those 5 things, or I'm going to do research on all of those 5 things, or I'm going to pick out one. And there's not just 5 commercials whenever I sit down and watch TV. If I'm watching TV for an hour, that's at least 15 commercials. So you think about that, that's an inundation. That's not the way promotional products work, which is a great thing for this group, especially as we're talking about what's going to cause them to take action. Online, mobile, print, the same thing. It's that they have to make a choice. With promotional products, they don't have to make a choice. It's a cool product. Yeah, this is great. This is something that I needed. I wanted. I want to keep around. But not only that, I want to figure out more because I am the person that asks why. I want to figure out more about that product. I want to figure out more about the resource or the message that's coming across from that product. So this is a study that was done totally uniquely outside of our industry, but it talks about product experiences that truly resonate with millennials. And whenever I saw this, it really made me perk up to say, oh, this speaks so well to what we're trying to do in our industry. So 9 product experiences that resonate with millennials, the #1 being see and touch. Well, we are the see and touch industry. We are the tangible industry. We're the tangible medium. And that obviously works really well for this group of people. The thing that's easy for people to do with millennials is to write them off as they're they're so tech familiar. They're such in a digital world that's where they're getting the majority of their content. The problem with that is they are getting the majority of their content from that. They want different experiences than that. I don't want to be advertised to. I don't want to be prompted to take action on a message through email or text messaging or social media pop-ups or anything like that because I see so much of that. But if that person's at that football game and they're giving me a product that I can physically see and touch and put it in my hand, it is so totally unique from how everyone else is trying to reach me. It causes me to stop and actually focus on the product, as opposed to trying to focus on the many inundations that's out there in broadcast or online media world. So that says that we're perfectly aligned to doing business with this group presently, and then that number will just increase in the future, especially as some of these other things take hold. As online media ramps up and people are putting more money into that because they think, oh, but the millennials are on Facebook, so we've got to inundate them with Facebook messages. Well, that's going to cause more and more people to look away from that, to kind of skip over those things. And let's face it, this is a smart group. This is a group that's grown up in a world of technology. They know what to look through. They know how to look past when they're being sold to through channels like social media or email. But it's not as easy to see that you're trying to be sold to through a product, because the product they've got that see and touch factor. So you can see as the list kind of goes down, there are definitely ways that we can tie ourselves back into some of these things. In person, word of mouth, it's that, if it's prompting action, if that product that I'm getting at that football game is prompting action, then the person standing behind the tent may be able to have a conversation with me, but it's about something that prompts them to be able to have that word of mouth, that opportunity to connect in person. And then there are some other things that tie into this as well. But that's the big thing that I wanted to point out, is the see and touch. So let's look at the top five reasons why millennials specifically keep promotional products. Number one, because of the usefulness of the product. Again, like I said, this is not a passive group, it's a very active group. Within that active group, they want to find products, they want to be able to utilize products that are useful to them in more than just a semi-standard sort of time frame. They want products that they can utilize to make their lives easier. That's where we see things like the tech products come in. It's how can this product help in my lifestyle, and how can it make my lifestyle a little bit easier, or can make me a little bit more effective, or can help me stand out a little bit. So that's where the trendy piece comes in. This is a group that's grown up in a world that's very trendy, that's constantly pushing out trends. The cool thing is we've got the opportunity to capture those trends, to focus on those different trends. And there are many, many different trends we can look at depending on the category of person. But you think about the reason why they're actually keeping the product, because it's trendy in some way. Maybe it's an apparel item that happens to be sort of in right then, or it's got a branding message that they're very passionate about, but they see that as a trend. That's something that they're going to keep around. Number three, fun. The top, of the top reasons that millennials want to keep these products is because the product is fun. They're able to utilize it regularly in a fun capacity, which is great, because you think about how many products that are in our industry that are fun, that are just uniquely fun, that were created because they're fun first, and that they just happen to be able to be an effective resource to deliver a message. So that stands out. Number four, the message. Again, if it delivers a good message that they either want to communicate out to somebody else, or that they want to connect with again and again, they will keep that product around, because the message is important. The products that I keep around that maybe are not as immediately useful, trendy, or even fun to me, I keep because of the message that it's delivering. I've got several things in my office that the message was so well done. It either had I've got something with a quote from JFK on it that's very inspirational, and not only did it caused me to take action on it, but it caused me to keep it, because it's still an inspirational thing even to this day. So something that's got a really effective message is something that they will keep around despite the useful, trendy, or fun aspect of it. And finally, nostalgia is a huge thing with this group, which is actually kind of comical, because you think we really haven't been around that long to experience nostalgia, but we found that products that resonate with this group are ones that bring back that early childhood mentality, which is the late 80s, early 90s. We've seen a lot of products that have been very successful as different things have kind of come back in. I mean, you think about whenever Nintendo re-released their game system from the 1980s, and it sold out almost overnight and cost people hundreds of dollars, and it wasn't because people were craving the information, the content, they were craving the nostalgia of it. And this group is, for whatever reason, really highly involved in that level of nostalgia. So of those categories, the cool thing here is that the promotional products within each of those categories are so vast and so unique that it shows that we can plug in, we can tap into one of these 5 things. Now, obviously, this list goes down much further, but it's very easy to plug most products back into one of these 5 things. We can figure out a way to sell to our customers if they're trying to plug in, especially if they're trying to plug into millennials, to millennial end users. You can tap into one of these resources and say, well, here's a product that's trendy, or here's a product that is just so important, the message is so important that the product kind of comes secondary, or there's something that we can plug in that's nostalgic about it. One of those things can be plugged into so many things that we've got and so many resources that we provide. So, top 5 product list for this group. Now, as this group gets older, this is going to change. I guarantee we could do this survey every single day, and the top 5 products will change. Depends on who you ask. It depends on where they are within their business, where they are within their personal lives. But out of the whole, the top 5 products for this group still remain these things. Drinkware is important because that's kind of it's part of going back into that trendy, fun idea. That's where things are. Apparel is apparel is king throughout the promotional products world. This group is no exception to that. They are much more picky whenever it comes to apparel. The branding if it's a branded product, it's got to be a subtle brand. If it's a message, it has to be subtle in some way. It can't be something that's just, the days of the giant print on the front of t-shirts has gone away and given way to a much more tame, much more effective advertising resource through those products. It's funny that even whenever I ask students, whenever I'm in college classrooms and advertising and marketing classes, and I ask students to think about their favorite products that they've utilized, and sunglasses it always comes up. So I had to include that one. Obviously, like power banks and things like that, technology just in general, because remember, it's about having something that's valuable to them. If it's something that's going to save them time, if it's a resource to them, power banks and things that are technology driven are my favorite products, because as I'm out on the road and traveling, those are things that I can always rely on. And then the final one that's on this particular list are the Bluetooth speakers and things like that. I think we will see that evolve. I think that list will continue to evolve, especially as the group gets older. This is more specific to them I think as they become consumers as part of their organization or their business, that these products will evolve, but still following that idea of, is it delivering a message? Is it fun? Is it trendy? Is it unique? All of that. So I said earlier, I point out a couple of people or a couple of organizations that I think have really figured out the model for tapping into the millennial generation. Now, the first one is Harley Davidson. Now, I don't know if you've seen, if you haven't, I encourage you to check it out. The Live Your Legend campaign. It's hashtag Live Your Legend. So you can go to any of the social medias and type in hashtag Live Your Legend and get a ton of information about this. There are some websites, there are some commercials that have been done. There is a lot of viral that goes on with this. It's almost exclusively social media based, because they wanted to reach out to this group, knowing they do business where, you do business where they, as in this group, does business. So they created this whole social media campaign around helping to make the millennial generation realize, Harley Davidson is not an old brand. It's not a brand that you have to wait to be a consumer until you're near retirement age. It's really for everyone. And I point that out because whenever it comes to things like tapping into messages, driving back to a cause, figuring out ways to plug customers that are involved in causes back into the messaging, they are doing it almost perfectly as far as me as a millennial consumer is concerned. They're doing a great job at delivering value that's past the product. If you look at the Live Your Legend campaign, the product, the actual motorcycles, the motor clothes, all the different categories of products that they have take an enormous backseat to just the message of community, of family, of opportunity, of growth, of progressiveness. All of those things are in the forefront of their message. So, for example, there's one, if you look on YouTube, there's one viral video that was created, and all their videos use actual people. And they've got one girl who it talks about, you don't even see her on a motorcycle that much, but she's talking about the relationships she's got with her father and about how he taught her about motorcycles and about being able to be unique and all these different characteristics. But the only time that it ever mentions that she has a Harley Davidson is in a footnote in the beginning. She doesn't say it. Nothing in the commercial says it, because it's not what it's about. It's about delivering value through the messaging. And it resonates so well with that millennial group. So that's one example. The other example is Airbnb. If you've noticed, Airbnb doesn't have a ton of broadcast, print media, all of those different things. They're really reaching out to people in a very viral way. They're doing that by plugging in stories. They're getting these people that are, Airbnb is obviously people that are putting their own homes up for people to come and stay in, and they're actually tapping into that message. They're tapping into community. They're focusing on community. They're focusing on giving back. So it's another one that I like to mention, just because they are doing things in a way that most people, most marketers would look at and say, well, you're not able to tap most effectively into your audience that way. But they're saying, well, but our audience are these people that live in this world. We need to be able to deliver something that's extremely emotional or effective in their world. But again, the product is very secondary. And I think we'll start to see that with promotional products. Yes, it's great that they've got the product, that it's valuable, but the message is going to stand out the most. Okay, so I encourage people to connect with me. Please connect with me. Send me an email. Send me questions, comments, concerns that you've got. As I always say, we're all doing this at the right time. We're doing it at the same time. We're all talking about this. And this is the very teeny tiny tip of a giant iceberg. So I want people to be able to tap into our resources. Best way to do that, obviously, through social media is a great way. You can see what the chatter that's going on about this idea pertaining to our industry is. I also encourage, for those that are in District 1 that are as part of VAPA or NEPA, that I'm going to be giving my presentation in person in each of those locations at those dates, talking about the idea of this millennial market inside and outside of our workforces. How do we meet the needs of this group as consumers? How do we meet the needs of this group as future employees and future leaders and things like that? So what I want to do is open it up for questions. So if you got questions for me, feel free to type them in, and I'll ask Sana Jean to just field those to me.
Okay, I don't have any questions yet. Well, Seth, thank you so much. This was really very informative. I'm sure I speak for everybody that it really was. And great voice, and you're easy to listen to. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to speak to all of us across the East Coast.
I'm very glad to.
Okay. All right, I don't see any questions, so I guess we'll end it here. If you have Seth's contact information, if you'd like to reach out to him directly, that would be great. Thank you, Seth, and thank you for everybody participating on the webinar today.
All right, thanks, everybody.